We now move into a fifth technical session focusing on the complex and often contested intersection of religion, identity and belonging. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Megha P. Antony, Assistant Professor, School of Social Science, who will be chairing this session. Dr. Megha, thank you for chairing this session and we offer you the floor.
Thank you, and I welcome you all to the fifth session, technical session. The theme of the session is intersection of religion, identity and belongings. We have three presenters in the session, and I introduce Dr. Shanti Swaroop Sirapangi. His paper is on passive Satyagraha as counter-resistance, remnants of marginality among Dalit Christians of Andhra Pradesh. Dr. Swaroop holds a PhD from Department of Political Science, HCU, and he is now working as an independent researcher. Dr. Swaroop.
Thank you, everyone, and very good afternoon. It's my pleasure to associate with this platform K.R. Narayanan Center for Human Rights and Social Justice. My paper is titled as Passive Satyagraha as Counter Resistance, Reminiscence of Marginality among Dalit Christians of Andhra Pradesh. The human subject to agency is subject to continuous transformation. However, the dynamics of such transformation still carry forward the reminiscence of past memory in varied forms. For the Dalit Christians, such a reminiscence upon conversion to Christianity is based on continued forms of marginality in a hegemonic upper caste dominant society. Thus, for the Dalit Christians, the subject to transformation upon conversion to Christianity is not full-fledged. As a result, the present paper captures modes as a counter-resistance against hegemonic upper caste opposition to their conversion. The paper's significance lies in constructively projecting and theorizing Telugu caste and religious politics concerning Dalit Christians. However, the South Indian Telugu region's caste and religious politics share larger systematic dynamics from the wider Indian polity. Methodologically, the paper extends grounded theories to Dalit Christians' passive Satyagraha as counter resistance. I have chosen this theme in consonance with the proposed Colloquium on marginality, memory and resistance. In South India, it is very well known that some Dalit Christians are seeking legally SC Hindu status, but spiritually they are adherent followers of Christianity for generations together. This is also the case in some other few states like Orissa, Maharashtra and henceforth. Why the concept of Satyagraha comes as a counter-resistance is one of the focal themes of this paper. I mean passive Satyagraha as a kind of civil disobedience. Dalits seeking SC Hindu status instead of claiming minority reservation legally under BC category is recognized as a kind of passive Satyagraha. The elements of passive Satyagraha or civil disobedience consist of a few themes like non-violent resistance, conscious law breaking, acceptance of consequences, and moral appeal. When seen from the passive Satyagraha and civil disobedience modes of Dalit Christians, three of these aspects gains wider significance. For example, Dalits without revolting against the political system, they are non-violently seeking SC Hindu status. Same way, they are consciously breaking law. And they are, by consciously breaking law, they also accept consequences. And they also morally appeal that they are not ready to accept minority status as Dalit Christians and backward classes category. Instead, they should be recognized as SC Christians. Why these dynamics are coming into fold and why this Satyagraha or civil disobedience is taking into or unfolding in the Indian democratic history is one of the focal themes. The original Constitution of India, which came into existence on which was formalized on 26th November 1949, never recognized Dalits on religious category. Or in another sense, in the original Constitution of India, Dalits were recognized as a religious neutral category. However, on 10th August 1950, one presidential order or constitutional order is given wherein henceforth Dalits are discriminated and recognized based on religious criteria. Thus, the original constitutional spirit was tampered by the first interim government of India even before conduct of general elections to the parliament or India in 1952. Hence, from 1950 onwards, Dalits are discriminated on religious grounds and first Hindu Dalits are given reservation. Later on, Sikh Dalits are given reservation and later on, Buddhist Dalits are given reservation. However, there are two prime sections, religious sections who are excluded from this reservation domain. That is Christians and Muslims. Christian Muslims and Dalit Muslims. I have done extensive research as part of my doctoral thesis on Dalit Christians in a coastal Andhra Pradesh. And due to the involved sensitivity, I did not disclose the name of the city and I coined it as a pseudonym as a city Q. I have extensively observed that the Dalit Christians or the Dalits who seek SC Hindu status are increasingly associated with the churches for few generations together. That means for the past few generations, they are increasingly taking SC Hindu legal status, but they are adherent followers of Christianity in their personal realm. This is the duality inherently present in the South Indian context primarily. This however, the church managements are by and large are under the domain of the Dalits who legally seek openly minority status. However, the Dalits seeking minority status as over the years has got down and the Dalits who are legally having SC Hindu status are also looking after the administration of the churches. This is a profound potential dimension involved in the religious discourse. Over the years, they have been increasingly accepting Christianity, but legally they are Hindus. Now they have come to the stage where officially some of the Christians are not visible and hence they are looking after the administration of their own churches also. I have chosen two major congregation churches, Protestant congregation churches, which are dominantly attended by two major Dalit sections in Andhra Pradesh, that is Madiga and Mala. And I have extensively studied those two churches without disclosing their real identities under two major congregations. I mean congregations means their wider network of churches are spread across in the Telugu region and a few other South Indian states also primarily. I called this as a passive resistance. The Dalit Christians are continuing passive resistance. Why? Dalit Christians are not doing any massive movement in South India or in the Telugu region to secure SC Christian status legally. However, the Dalit movement which we see either in South India or in the Andhra Pradesh is a mainstream Dalit movement. I mean by mainstream Dalit movement, it is religious neutral, or the mainstream Dalit movement is led by the people who legally seek SC Hindu status, but most of them belongs to the Christian identity, though they openly don't declare their faith. However, they are not adherent Christians. The Christians who are into the civil society activism are not much into adherent Christianity, though they belong to Christianity. They proclaim certain kind of leftist ideology, but in the personal realm, they belong to Christian faith. But the movement against the constitutional order of 1950 and Indian government's denial of Dalits' rights is led by Christian church leadership. Christian church leadership is leading the battles judicially in the Supreme Court of India. Primarily, Catholic Bishops' Conference of India, National Churches, National Council of Churches in India are leading legal battles in the churches. And they are, that means Dalit movement is there from the above, but Dalit Christian movement is not there from the below. These two church congregations, CBCI and MCCI, are presenting Liberation Sunday, Liberation Theology, and Reformation agenda from above. But they are not, there is a disconnect between mainstream Dalit activists and the church-led Dalit movement judicially. This is one of the potential passiveness of the Dalit movement in coastal Andhra Pradesh. I look forward for questions as the time is up. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Swaroop. Now we are moving on to Maya M., research scholar from School of Social Science, MG University. Her topic is Between Faith, the Liminal Identity of the Kanikkar Tribes in Kerala. Over to you. Between faith.
Good afternoon, everybody. So today I am here to present on the topic Between Faith, the Liminal Identity of the Kanikkar tribe in Kerala. Okay. So about the Kanikkar tribe, they are an indigenous group of people who live in the forest of Western Ghats in India. They spread across the states of Kerala and Tamil Nadu. They are a jungle tribe inhabiting the southernmost hilly areas of the Western Ghats, distributed in the Neyyatingara and Nedumangad Taluk of Trivandrum district. They are also found in Kollam district and spread over adjoining district of Kanyakumari and Tirunelveli of Tamil Nadu. So coming to the traditional religious practice of Kanikkar, the religious belief of Kanikkar are deeply intertwined with nature and ancestral spirits. Worship of forest deities, spirit mediums, and ritual performance mark their religious system. Chatapata, a ritualistic performance, holds a crucial role in their spiritual life, often conducted to seek divine intervention in matters of health, agriculture, and protection from malevolent spirits. Similarly, another ritual named Koddi, it is performed with offerings to deities believed to safeguard their well-being. So these practices function as religious expressions and as mechanisms of social cohesion within the tribe. They primarily worship the spirits of their deceased ancestors and forest deities, bestowing them with honorific titles such as Tamburan, Muttan, and Mutti. The name of these deities vary by region, reflecting local traditions and beliefs. Some of their revered clan deities include Mallan Tamburan, Kochu Mallan Tamburan, Arikutti Tamburan, Amottu Tamburan, and Kaalattu Muttan. The Kanikkas traditionally do not construct temples or shrines for worship, nor do they place significant faith in local temples or deities, as said by Sebastian. Their spiritual practice do not rely on such structures. However, Kanikkas living in the plains have integrated elements of mainstream religious traditions by building temples, consecrating deities, installing idols, and following formalized worship rituals. So despite this shift, they have not entirely abandoned their ancestral beliefs. They continue to honor mountain and clan deities by building altara, performing rituals with magnolia, champaga flowers, and conducting ceremonies like Koddi. Ultimately, their religious practice reflects a blend of tradition as they simultaneously revere both their clan deities and local Hindu gods, embodying a hybrid form of worship. So, liminality is a concept originally developed by Genner in his work Rites of Passage and later explained by Turner in the ritual process. So, it refers to an in-between state where individuals or groups exist outside of established structures, often during transitions or rites of passage. So this state is characterized by ambiguity, disorientation, and the dissolution of normal social roles, which leads to the possibility of transformation. As they adopt element of Hinduism, they find themselves in a liminal space that is neither fully tribal nor completely assimilated into Hindu society. This cultural in-betweenness manifests in their religious practice, where indigenous rituals are performed alongside Hindu ceremonies. However, this is not a simple synthesis, rather it signifies a struggle between preservation and adaptation. The erosion of the traditional knowledge, particularly the role of spirit mediums and oral transmissions of sacred songs, further deepens their cultural ambiguity. Shifting ritual spaces. This is a narrative that I got from my ethnographic field. In my grandfather's time, we didn't have any temples. The hills and rivers were our gods, and every tree had a spirit. We performed chant in the heart of forest, calling upon the spirit of the land for protection and guidance. But now things are different. The forest is no longer ours to roam freely, with so many areas now protected by government rules. We cannot perform the old rituals as we once did, and the connection with the spirit of the forest and rivers feels weaker. Now we go to temples in the town and engage in festivals. But I often wonder, do these gods hear us the way the spirit of our ancestors did when we walked the forest? We find ourselves caught between the two worlds. The forest is distant and the temple feels somewhat unfamiliar, but still we have to go. So this narrative reflects Kanikka tribes' a liminal identity, a state of transition where they are no longer fully connected to their indigenous beliefs, nor completely absorbed into Hindu practices. The forced separation from the forest due to state regulation leaves them detached from their ancestral spiritual home, while the adoption of Hindu temple rituals and participation in festivals does not offer the same depth of connection. So this creates a sense of being in between, where the people exist in a religious and cultural liminality, unable to fully reclaim their traditional beliefs or fully integrate into the dominant Hindu practice. So the uncertainty and conflict experienced in this transition are indicative of their ongoing struggle. So among the Kanikka tribes, the tribal priest is named as Plati. He held a central position in their traditional spiritual and religious practices. Unlike the structured priesthood of Hinduism, the Plati did not follow a formal religious hierarchy, but instead inherited his knowledge and ritual expertise through oral traditions. His role was deeply rooted in the Kanika's connection with nature, ancestors, and clan deities. When worship is conducted in temple, the Brahmin priests rather than Plati perform the rituals. This marks a significant departure from traditional spiritual practice. While the Plati invoked clan and forest deities, Hindu temple priests follow Vedic rituals and Sanskrit chants that are foreign to this Kani traditions. While asking about the beliefs, they said, we are Adivasis, but now we follow the Hindu beliefs and customs. So these are the multiple statements from the respondents. This is the statement from the respondents, from the multiple respondents. So we were forced to leave the hills and settle near the towns among the caste Hindus, and their gods were different from ours. We had no Plati to lead us, no sacred groves for worship. Slowly we started going to their temple. At first it felt strange. These rituals were not ours, but what choice did we have? Our always needed the hills and the spirit of our ancestors. Without them, our gods felt silent and distant. So we can't go back to the forest. So we returned to the temples. Now we pray to their deities just as they do. The past is behind us, and though we still call ourselves Adivasis, but our worship is no longer the same. So this transformation was not merely a choice, but a necessity born out of displacement. Then integration of Hindu customs into life events. While taking marriage, the shift from tribal wedding traditions to temple marriage with Brahmin priest, and earlier conducted near the hut of tribal leader named Patapera. Now the rituals were led by, earlier the rituals were led by Plati and Urumupan with blessings from ancestral spirit, and betel leaves and areca nuts were traditionally used as symbolic offerings in Kanikkar marriage ceremonies to seek the blessings of ancestors and to gain the acceptance from the broader community. This was an important custom followed by them. However, contemporary practice have moved towards temple marriages officiated by Hindu priests. Relating to death rites, transition from forest burials to cremation and Hindu funeral customs. Burial rituals involved ancestral worship with offerings to spirit in sacred groves. The Plati led post-death ceremonies. Now the cremation is replaced by burials and offering rice bowls for the deceased ancestors. Regarding childbirth rituals, the tribal traditions were replaced with temple ceremonies. So in a nutshell, displacement from the ancestral lands, that is forced relocation from hill to settlement near the town, disrupted their connection to sacred landscapes. Then the decline of traditional religious authorities like Plati and Urumupan weakened the transmission of indigenous spiritual practices. Then restricted access to forests, government regulations limited their ability to perform rituals in sacred groves, severing ties with ancestral worship. Even though some spaces are given for worship to forest dwellers, this has affected their autonomy over religious practices. Then proximity to caste Hindu community, increased interaction with caste Hindus led to exposure and gradual adoption of mainstream beliefs and temple worship. Then with absence of traditional ritual structures, without the places of worship or priests, Hindu temples became the default alternative for spiritual practices. Then state-led education and missionary activities introduced new religious perspectives, often discouraging indigenous spiritual practice as backward or superstitious. So neither fully connected to indigenous traditions, nor completely integrated into mainstream religion. They exist in an in-between state of cultural and spiritual transition.
Thank you, Maya. Now we have Anuraj M. and Sreelakshmi T.S., postgraduate students from the School of Gender Studies, MG University. Their paper is on Resisting and Deconstruction, the Popular Narratives and Mapping the Lives of Subalterns Through Literature, a content analysis of Poykayil Appachan's selected poems. Over to you.
The movement. Good evening. Good evening. My name is Anuraj, and
I'm Sreelakshmi,
Sreelakshmi
TS.
we are from School of Gender Studies Department. I am batch number 1, and this is my second batch student. So today we are discussing about resisting and deconstructing the popular narratives. The subject is there. So basically, as a general introduction, I have to say who is Poykayil Sri Kumara Gurdevan. He is also known as Poykayil Appachan or Poykayil Yohanan, was a spiritual leader, poet, Dalit emancipator, and Renaissance figure who founded the Pratyaksha Yaksha Deva Sabha, a socio-religious movement dedicated to the upliftment of oppressed caste in Kerala. Born into the family of enslaved laborers in Iruvaperur, he grew up witnessing the deep-seated caste oppression imposed by both upper caste Hindus and Syrian Christians. Initially embracing Christianity, he later rejected it after realizing the caste discrimination persisted within the church, leading him to burn the Bible as a symbolic act of defense in 1909. He established his own movement, advocating for the spiritual and social liberation of Dalits. His poetry and activism were deeply intertwined, serving as a both critique of caste oppression and a call for Dalit assertion. As a testament to his influences, he was nominated twice to the Srimulam Praja Sabha, the Legislative Council of Travancore, making his contribution to Dalit empowerment both literary and politically. Here we are only doing a content analysis of his poems published by Kerala Sahitya Academy. And it's just mere a content analysis on a feminist research methodological way. Shift it. This study seeks to understand the experiences of marginalized individuals, particularly Dalit, through a content analysis of Poykayil Appachan's selected poems, offering a perspective that extends beyond conventional literary and historical narratives. It examines his poetry through two primary lenses: gender and alternative historical construction. By doing so, it highlights how its work challenges dominant discourses and amplifies the voice of the oppressed. In terms of gender, the study explores how Appachan's poetry addresses the oppression of Dalit women and broader gender system of marginalization. It assesses the progressiveness of his poetic voice within the framework of Dalit feminist thought, highlighting the intersections of caste and gender oppression. This approach situates his work within the larger discourse of Dalit feminism, shedding light on the often overlooked dimensions of his poetry. Regarding alternative historical construction, the research employs critical discourse analysis to position Appachan's work as a counter-history that challenges upper caste Renaissance narratives. His poetry serves as a counter-archive that contests elite-crafted histories, exposing the deep intersections of caste and religion and the varying inequalities among untouchable communities. The study argues a holistic appreciation of Appachan as not just a poet, but as a historian of the subalterns. whose verses function as a continuous act of resistance and remembrance. Addressing a significant research gap, this study focuses on the intersection of caste and gender oppression in Dalit poetry, an aspect often overlooked in existing scholarship. By centering the lived experience of the oppressed, it explores how Appachan's poetry subverts mainstream upper caste historiography and contributes to the Dalit studies and feminist scholarship engaging with caste, gender, and history through his poetic lens. This research deepens our understanding of both historical and contemporary struggles of marginalized community.
Key theoretical framework in the study. This study employs a historiographical approach rooted in standpoint theory, centering the lived experience of marginalized communities, particularly Dalits, by prioritizing the perspective of the oppressed. It challenges dominant historical narratives that often exclude or misrepresent subaltern voices. Engaging with key concepts from subaltern studies, the research positions Poykayil Appachan as a historian of the subalterns, highlighting how his poetry serves as a both counter-archive and act of historian reclamation. His verses do not merely document Dalit experience but actively resist the erasure of their histories, making his work an essential part of anti-caste discourse. This study's intellectual framework is further informed by the work of B.R. Ambedkar and Sharmila Rege, two significant figures in anti-caste and Dalit feminist thought. Their contributions, while do not directly apply to every poem analyzed, shape the broader theoretical foundation of the research. Ambedkar's critique of caste and Rege's insights into Dalit feminist discourse provide critical lens through which Appachan's poetry is examined. By engaging with these perspectives, the study not only deepens the understanding of Appachan's role as a poet, historian, but also contributes to the larger discourse on caste, gender, and historiography within Dalit studies.
This study employs a historiographical approach. Dalit literature critique caste and systematic oppression, serving as both a political tool and counter-historiographical medium that challenges upper caste narratives. Poykayil Appachan's oral storytelling function as an alternative historical archive, documenting Dalit struggles and resisting historiographical omissions, particularly in contrast to missionary records of Dalit conversion. While his contributions to Dalit literature and social reform are recognized, the intersections of gender and caste in his poetry, especially the experiences of Dalit women, remains underexplored. Similarly, his role in counter-historiography has not been thoroughly examined. The study addresses these gaps by analyzing gender in Dalit poetry, highlighting Dalit women's experiences and positioning Appachan's work as a tool of historical resistance. Through this approach, it advances Dalit feminist theory and deepens our understanding of his literary legacy within a socio-historical and gendered framework.
Methodology, content analysis of Poykayil Appachan's poem. The methodology employed in this study involves a content analysis of selected poems by Poykayil Appachan, utilizing Dalit feminism and critical discourse analysis as key theoretical frameworks. The study examines these poems through the lenses of gender and alternative historical constructions. The content analysis focuses on the themes such as marginalization, caste oppression, gendered subjugation, intergenerational suffering, resistance against oppressive systems, Dalit slavery, and the critique of dominant religious and historical narratives. Specific attention is given to Appachan's challenge to upper caste Renaissance accounts, his critique of Hinduism and Christianity, and his exploration of subcaste consciousness, displacement, and theological reinterpretations. The study also analyzes Appachan's linguistic strategies through critical discourse analysis, highlighting his progressive language that subverts caste and gender discrimination. This includes his use of counter discourse, irony, satire, metaphor, rhetorical rhetorical questions and folk tradition to dismantle dominant social hierarchies. Additionally, narrative techniques such as giving voice to the subaltern, personal storytelling, generational narrative, counter-archiving, and architectural metaphors for liberation and are explored. The primary source for analysis is Pratyaksha Raksha Deva Sabha Patukal compiled by V.V. Swami and E.V. Anil. The selection of poem is guided by the study focuses on gender, alternative historical constructions, emphasizing works that address Dalit women's experiences and critique internalized patriarchal norm. Specific poems are analyzed for their engagement with enslavement, patriarchal oppression, Brahminical dominance, and the continuity of caste exploitation. Through this methodological approach, the study aims to offer nuanced understanding of Appachan's poem as powerful counter-narrative that foregrounds the lived realities of Dalit communities and challenges mainstream historical and religious discourses. Next.
We had done a content analysis for 36 poems, which was in the text, and each are unnamed poems, which gives information about the time which is written in during the time which is delivered that poem and etc. But after the content analysis, we got each poem gives some kind of social insights, and we are very delighted to share that with you. And after that, okay. Poykayil Appachan's poetry embodies his resistance by challenging dominant power structures and amplifying marginalized voices. His work counters upper caste resistance as discourse, using standpoint theory to reclaim historiography to Dalit. For instance, his fourth poem reframes Brahminical entry into Kerala as an invasion, disrupting dominant narratives. Critiquing Hinduism and Christianity as an oppressive system, his third poem exposes incomplete salvation to the Dalit persons, revealing how religious institutions upheld caste hierarchies. As a creator of a counter-archive, Appachan documents Dalit experiences omitted from mainstream history, such as the integrational suffering of his sixth poem. His work also foregrounds the Dalit woman's oppression, with his 6th and 31st poems amplifying their voices and agency. Using irony and rhetorical questions, he subverts dominant ideologies, positioning poetry as a political activism. Framed through Dalit feminism and critical discourse analysis, this study highlights his intersectional critique of caste and gender, recognizing him as a both poet and subaltern historian, reassessing historical omission and systemic inequalities.
Mapping subaltern lives. Poykayil Appachan's poetry serves as a powerful literary cartography of subaltern lives, interweaving themes of oppression, labor, memory, and resistance. His work critiques caste-based discrimination, slavery, and religious subjugation, exposing the exclusion of Dalit from temple spaces and highlighting the paradox of religious institutions that reinforces rather than dismantle caste oppression. His poems vividly depict slavery's brutal realities, with key links illustrating the dehumanization of enslaved people, severing of familial bond, and economic exploitation. Labor is another central theme, portraying Dalit as the backbone of the society while remaining deprived of dignity and economic security. His poetry also functions as an alternative archive, preserving the collective memory of subaltern suffering and countering historical erasure. Through invocative verses, he invokes ancestral memory, emphasizing the importance of remembering and transmitting these histories to future generations. Despite the overwhelming oppression, resistance permeates his work. His poetry itself becomes a tool of defense, giving voice to the marginalized, celebrating acts of agency like those Chinna in the 31st poem, and envisioning spaces of liberation like Amarapura, his theological rejection of biblical authority for Dalits, and his establishment of the Pratyaksha Raksha Deva Sabha further demonstrated his defense against hegemonic religious structures. In essence, Appachan's poetry not only documents the realities of marginalized communities but also serves as a testament to their enduring fight for justice and equality, offering a counter-narrative to dominant historical discourses.
We are really out of time.
Okay, we understood that there
Please
is not much
summarize.
time.
Please summarize and conclude. Okay.
And I am skipping this slide, and after I am just going to the 10th slide, which is this conclusion slide. I'm sorry that the 9th slide was so important. Poykayil Appachan, poetry critique caste-based discrimination and the complicity of Hinduism and Christianity in perpetuating social oppression, exposing religious hypocrisy and challenging spiritual liberation without social equality. As historian of the subaltern, his work serves as a counter-archive, documenting the erased histories of Dalit slavery and oppression while centering marginalized experiences. His engagement with caste and gender highlights Dalit women's suffering and resiliences, critiquing both external oppression and internalized patriarchy. Beyond lamentation, his poetry mobilizes Dalit for collective resistance against systematic exploitation. He interrogates colonial missionary influences in Kerala, revealing its entanglement with caste hierarchies and economic power while offering a radical theological reinterpretation that challenges biblical authority and redefines salvation from a subaltern standpoint. His critique of subcaste consciousness emphasizes unity over fragmentation, envisioning collective liberation. Future research can deepen gender analysis by exploring Dalit women's agency in his poetry, applying Dalit feminist framework, and examining internalized patriarchy. Subaltern historiography can benefit from comparing this poetic narrative with historical sources using subaltern studies and critical discourse analysis, and investigating this reception of this counter-archive within Dalit communities, comparative literary analysis, contextualization within Dalit resistance movement, and studies on this theological critique can enrich discourses on subaltern religious thought. Interdisciplinary approaches from history, sociology, gender studies, and anthropology can further illuminate this work.
Please
Okay.
conclude. Okay.
Thank you. And more, our content analysis is available in our research
Yeah.
work. So I'm sorry that I can't explain so much more because the work was so much big. Thank you.
Thank you. We are really running out of time. And thank you all for the presentations. Before I open for the session, I would really like to request our eminent professors, Professor Raju, Professor Deshpande, and Sanal Mohan sir to please comment and suggest them so that it will be useful for their further research. Thank you.
I shall try to be as brief as possible. To Santhi, I would like to ask this question: how did they negotiate between the two dual identities? I would like to really know that. Then, second, to Maya. See, Kanikkars had a long-standing history with the relation with the mainstream. You know that the Kanikkars used to take gifts from the forest and give it to Maharaja of Travancore during Onam. At least it's known that from 19th century onwards we have the documents. And so in this case they had relation with the mainstream. But when did they become Hindus? Or when they started worshipping Hindu gods and relegated Plathi to the sidelines? These two questions I would like to ask. And to Anuraj and Sreelakshmi, I would like to ask this question: what do you mean by critical discourse analysis? Is it the modern critical discourse analysis or postmodernist discourse analysis. If it is postmodernist discourse analysis, it is inadequate. Okay, thank you.
Three of us have been thrust into this role as the three wise men, yeah? So we have to keep playing that role. Thank you for your presentations, all of you. Santhi Swaroop, before you go to Satyagraha, propose Satyagraha as a model, you have to explore the pragmatic side of things. Is the SC quota, pragmatically speaking, better than whatever they would get under OBC as a minority? You have to explore those questions, and you can claim Satyagraha only if the pragmatic alternative is not what is being pursued, right? Otherwise, SC quota will be what, 16% at least? So whereas any sub-quota within OBC is likely to be much smaller, yeah? So that is a very big point, right? So immediately saying Satyagraha for something for which a more economical explanation exists is not good strategy. So you have to deal with that. Maya, if you look at the concept of liminality, it is a teleological concept, right? So in Vannegenep's, it's a read the passage. That means there is an end in sight. There is a post-liminal and a pre-liminal stages that are clearly defined, right? Now, you are talking about a group, either if to use the term liminal properly, they are on some teleological spectrum where they are moving from one identity to another, and they are in between. You are claiming liminality as something permanent. Now, that is conceptually a problem. If you are going to do that, then you have to distinguish yourself from the Van Gennep position, right? Otherwise, it doesn't make sense if this is not for Anuraj and Sreelakshmi. I think you tried to do far too much. This is a report. For an occasion like this, you should present from the last part, pick some particular content analysis, some particular poem, and build a narrative around it that can be a slice or that can be a whole that you can present in whatever 15 minutes, whatever you will be given. All this you know beforehand, right? You know that you will not get 1.5 hours or whatever to present your full report. So it is just a logistical, for you only logistical suggestion. Strategically choose what you can do and choose your best part, your strongest part, and present that. That would be it is too much, you're trying to do too much.
Thank you very much for the wonderful presentations that you have made. And to the first ones, Shanti Swaroop. So probably you have done it, is it part of your PhD or post-PhD work? PhD work. You must have done a good job with all those writings on Andhra Christianity. From the colonial period down to the recent ones by Chandrasekhar and other scholars. And there are many people who worked in this particular area. Probably you will have those things in the larger text or in the back of your mind, but I think you need to contextualize your cases with this. I remember reading the writings of Raj Pathas. He is a theologian who worked on, probably you know that, the similar kind of issues. And also the kind of writings we have on Madiga Christians of Konaisima and other places. And also you can take it back to the times of Bishop Asaria, the books written on him. So, and including the works of Chandra Mallampalli and many others. So you have this. So I wish probably you have done it, but that also opens up a very interesting kind of trajectory for the questions that you have raised. The other point, because you have referred to this presidential order of 1950 and other kinds of things that ensued out of that, subsequently broadening up this category to include Buddhists and before that the Sikhs and all that. Now, I mean, I think the question of citizenship comes there in a very big way. And who is a natural citizen of India? You know, that kind of things. I don't know. I'm blowing it off. Because we have Professor Sadish Deshpande, who has done excellent study at some, I mean, not very far in time, on this question in the context of reservation, etc. No? So therefore, I wish you really look at this and also, you know, provide this as a very complicated kind of narrative, although it might appear as simple, but as you yourself know, it's a very complex kind of thing. So from a social science perspective, I think that will be, you know, equally important. I'm not saying that what you said is not important, but this side is also important. That's the kind of thing that comes to my mind. And I also know that I forgot the names of those CPI-ML leaders who actually comes from the Dalit Christian background. You might know it better. And also the writings of Sujata Gildala and others. So there are different kind of, you know, the takes the Andhra Dalit Christians had. Dalit Christians from Andhra had over the years. So that all will complicate the kind of problem that you have already raised. I would like you to, you know, reflect a little more on that. And the second one, and again, you know, this question of liminality is already raised, and probably, you know, we also need to bring in here the state, the Travancore state, as well as, you know, the Indian state largely. And what happens to the Adivasis with different religious traditions and so on, how much it is contested. Probably the degree of that contest could be different in the empirical situation of the Kanikkars that you referred to, but quite interestingly, you will find the same dynamics, you know, getting worked out there. So I just want you to reflect a little more on that. And again, don't you find similar kind of things happening in other non-Adivasi communities, for instance? But, you know, obviously you have a case when you do this work among the Adivasi communities, but you might also see similar kind of things happening, but for I mean, due to a variety of other kinds of reasons. But there can be some overarching concerns that might connect these different kind of social nodes as they, you know, enter into these kinds of practices. Yeah, so I just want to draw your attention to this, particularly the, you know, the cases of gods, then the kind of quote-unquote reforms that you know, Kerala had undergone in the late 19th to 20th centuries that devalued some gods and made some gods as superior and that kind of things. And there are a lot of researches of that kind. So I wish to draw your attention to this. And to the last presentation by Anuraj and Sreelakshmi, congratulations to both of you for your work. But I think, as Professor Sadish Deshpande said, I would ask you to go slow a little bit, because you have got highly valued order terms. To my mind, I am quite skeptical about how will you use subaltern studies, because I have trekked a long way with that. That's why I'm asking you, what sort of critical insights you will derive out of that? Same with other kind of categories. So you may want to reinvent certain things and then see how of this subaltern studies, or what sort of thing that you will, take? What is the, what sort of ideas you will take from there to examine this? And some of these poems are familiar to me. You can have this analysis and all that. You get very interesting narrative about the life and times of the people as it comes out of the different oral traditions of the oppressed caste communities or enslaved communities. But where do you draw a line of demarcation when it comes to academic history? As a researcher in history, I would want to draw your attention to something like public history. Public history where things could be articulated differently. But public history has, again, this was a problem which was raised in our yesterday's discussion as, kind of the notion of partial truth. We are not saying that this is completely partial, but there are truths in what you have said, truths in the stories, etc. But at what point of time it becomes academic history? Because you have been building up your argument, drawing on all the critical social scientists, historians, and so on. I'm just curious to know at what point of time you will draw on their resources to strengthen your argument. So, and again, it is a different thing to talk about the kind of fragments of history that you find in these songs and several other kinds of things, and very different to talk about Poykayil Appachan or Poykayil Yohanan or Kumara Gurudevan as the historian. So these are entirely different projects. While I really understand the spirit in which you talk, I wish you go a little bit slower so that you really draw a line of demarcation. There is nothing wrong in demolishing many of this historiographical stuff, but you have not shown. You see, you can use a term like historiography, I'm team times, but it doesn't show exactly what you mean by this historiography. You have to spell out clearly. So for those who work in the realm of public history or academic history, historiography has a very definite meaning, implications, connotations, and so on. Therefore, I wish to draw your attention to that. So, apart from our kind of inclinations or commitment to certain kind of ideas and practices, when it comes to history writing, definitely you have to show that. I mean, I have nothing wrong with the fact that, echoing the old argument that we all should write our histories. Absolutely right. But the way you write that history is the real stuff. So therefore, I'm very curious to know, where do you hinge your argument on? You have to hinge it on somewhere. So, which is not very clear, because you have taken a great deal of things appreciably, but then, trying to plot through that is a big challenge that you have got. And again, so you have referred to Sharmila Rigge, for example. So I'm very curious to know, because here you are dealing with a religious movement, which has a very different take on many of this. And also mind that until as late as early 1950s, it was a Christian movement. Because you cannot think of a salvation without Christianity in that sense, because Indic religions, I'm stretching myself into a different realm. I don't know how much time is left. In 1 minute I will finish. The whole idea is that you cannot think of salvation at that point of time outside Protestant Christianity the way it was worked out in Travancore. So if you say that is meaningless, then your entire project will collapse. So therefore, as someone who works in the area of history, what I would suggest is that you have to go really slow, do the donkey's job of a historian if you want to challenge that sort of work. This is what I suggest for want of time. But otherwise, I could have given you a fantastic lecture on how to do this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now the floor is open for the interaction. We have limited time, so please limit your questions and inquiries. If nobody is questioning, we can go with their comments.
First of all, we are sorry for not using the time properly, and because we were so much, we thought that we will get 20 minutes, but unfortunately when we come here, we get to know that it's only 10 minutes. So that was a hurry, and I'm sorry for that. For the next time, we will manage our time, we will do in a better way. I promise you for that, and thank you for all of your insight and all. When it comes to the critical analysis, critical discourse analysis, we believe that whenever we are listening or whenever we are taking a poem or a work, a literature work, which is written like Poykayil Appachan, a person who is from the subaltern community and which is prominent right now, only right now in the academic system. And when I studied that particular work, I just focused on the language which is used in that poem, and the woman representation or marginal representation apart from men within the subaltern area. Like, can I switch to Malayalam? Okay. നമ്മളുടെ കവിതകളിൽ ഈ പറയുന്നത് പോലെ നമ്മൾ ദളിത് രീതിയിൽ മാത്രം കാണുന്നതല്ലാതെ ആ കവിതകളിൽ തന്നെ സ്ത്രീകളും കുട്ടികളും അതുപോലെ തന്നെ അതിനകത്ത് ഡിഫറെൻ്റ്ലി ഏബിൾഡ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള മനുഷ്യരുടെ റെപ്രസെൻറ്റേഷൻ ഉണ്ടോ എന്നുള്ള രീതിയിലൊരു ഡിസ്കോഴ്സ് അനാലിസിസ് നമ്മൾ കവിതകൾ വായിക്കുമ്പോൾ ചെയ്തു പോകുന്നുണ്ട്. അതുപോലെ തന്നെ വ്യാവഹാരികമായിട്ട് ഒരു ഡിസ്കോഴ്സ് നടന്നു വരുന്ന ഒരു കാലഘട്ടത്തിൽ അതിന് കൗണ്ടർ ചെയ്യുന്ന എന്തെങ്കിലും ഉണ്ടോ എന്നുള്ളതും കൂടെ നമ്മൾ പരിശോധിച്ച് വരുന്നുണ്ട്. അതുപോലെ കവിതകൾ വരുമ്പോൾ ജഡ്ജ്മെൻ്റലായിട്ട് ഇപ്പം നമ്മൾ കവിത അനലൈസ് ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ അതിനകത്ത് പണം ഇൻവെസ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്ന ഒരു ദളിത് കുടുംബത്തിൻ്റെ കഥ പറയുന്നുണ്ട്. ഇപ്പോൾ ഒരിടത്തൊരു ഉത്സവം നടക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ അവിടെ വന്നിട്ട് ഈ ഭർത്താവ് വീട്ടിൽ വന്നിട്ട്, എടി നമുക്ക് ഉത്സവം കാണാൻ പോകാം, നീ കൊച്ചിനെ എടുക്ക്, കൊച്ചിന് നമുക്ക് കാശിൻ്റെ കാര്യം ചെയ്യാം, എന്നെ ജനിപ്പിച്ച അമ്മയ്ക്ക് കാശിൻ്റെ കാര്യം ചെയ്യാം, ബാക്കി മജോറിറ്റി കാശ് നമുക്ക് ഉത്സവത്തിന് കൊടുക്കാം, അവിടെ ആനയുണ്ട്, രാജാവുണ്ട്, നമുക്കത് കണ്ടിട്ട് തിരിച്ച് കാട്ടിലേക്ക് തിരിച്ചു പോകാം എന്നൊരു കവിത വരുന്നുണ്ട്. അപ്പം നമ്മൾ ഡിസ്കോഴ്സ് അനാലിസിസ് ചെയ്യുമ്പം ആരാണ് അവിടെ ആ തീരുമാനം എടുക്കുന്നത്? അതൊരു ദളിത് പുരുഷനാണ് എടുക്കുന്നത്. ആരോടാണ് ഇത് ഇമ്പോസ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്? അതൊരു സ്ത്രീയോടാണ് ഇമ്പോസ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. അവർ തിരിച്ചതിന് പറയുന്നുണ്ടോ? ഇല്ല. കുട്ടിക്ക് എത്രയാണ് കൊടുക്കുന്നത്? ഇത്ര രൂപ. മാക്സിമം പൈസ ആർക്കാണ് കൊടുക്കുന്നത്? അമ്പലത്തിന്. പിന്നീട് അവരെങ്ങോട്ടാണ് തിരിച്ചു പോകുന്നത്? കാട്ടിലേക്ക്. അപ്പോൾ ഹൂ ഈസ് റെസ്പോൺസിബിൾ ഫോർ ദിസ്? ഇവൻ ദോ ദേ ആർ സബാൾട്ടൺ, ഹൂ ഈസ് ദ റെസ്പോൺസിബിൾ ഫോർ ദിസ് ഫാക്ട് എന്നുള്ള കാര്യം വരുന്ന സമയത്ത് അങ്ങനെ ഒരു ഫെമിനിസ്റ്റ് ലെൻസിലൂടെ, അങ്ങനെ ഒരു ക്രിട്ടിക്കൽ ഡിസ്കോഴ്സിലൂടെ നമ്മൾ എല്ലാ പോയത്തിനെയും കാണാൻ ശ്രമിക്കുന്നുണ്ടെന്നുള്ളതാണ്. ജഡ്ജ്മെൻ്റലായിട്ടുള്ള കാര്യത്തിൽ ഇപ്പോൾ ഇതിലൊരു ചിന്ന എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞൊരു സ്ത്രീയുടെ കാര്യം പറഞ്ഞു. കുമരകത്ത് പൊയ്കയിലപ്പച്ചനും ബാക്കിയുള്ള ആൾക്കാരും ഈ ഒരു യോഗം നടത്തിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന സമയത്ത് ഒരു അറ്റാക്ക് അവർക്ക് നേരെ ഉണ്ടാകുകയും അവരെയും കുറച്ച് ശിഷ്യന്മാരെയും രക്ഷിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് കുമരകത്ത് 6 വഴി വഞ്ചി തുഴഞ്ഞു പോകുന്നത് ചിന്ന എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞൊരു സ്ത്രീയാണ്. അപ്പോൾ ആ സമയത്ത് ചിന്നയെ പ്രകീർത്തിച്ചിട്ട് അനുരൂപിണി, നീ അടുത്തേക്ക് വരൂ എന്നൊക്കെ പറഞ്ഞ് വളരെ നീണ്ട ശബ്ദം ആൾക്കാരെ കേൾക്കട്ടെ, അത് ഈ സങ്കീർത്തനവാക്യങ്ങൾ വെച്ചിട്ടാണ് പറയുന്നത്. അപ്പം അങ്ങനെയുള്ള രീതിയിൽ വരുന്ന സമയത്ത് വേറൊരു രീതിയിൽ വുമണിനെ റെപ്രസെൻ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നതായിട്ട് കാണാൻ പറ്റും. സോ സബാൾട്ടേൺ രീതിയിൽ മാത്രമാണ് അപ്പച്ചൻ്റെ കവിതകൾ വായിച്ചു പോന്നിരുന്നത്. പക്ഷേ അതിനകത്ത് ജെൻഡർ റെപ്രസെൻറ്റേഷനുണ്ട്, കുട്ടികളുണ്ട്, അങ്ങനെയുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങളെല്ലാം ഉണ്ട്. സോ ഐ ഹാഡ് റിട്ടൺ ഓൾ ദീസ് തിങ് ഇൻ മൈ സ്റ്റഫ്, ബട്ട് ഐ എം വെരി സോറി ദാറ്റ് ഐ കാൺട്ട് പെർഫോം ദാറ്റ് തിങ് ടു യു. ഐ എം എക്സ്ട്രീംലി സോറി ഫോർ ദാറ്റ്. ദാറ്റ് വാസ് ദ ആൻസർ ഫോർ ദിസ്. ആൻഡ് സാൽവേഷൻ, അപ്പച്ചൻ്റെ സാൽവേഷൻ ടെക്നിക്കൽ സാൽവേഷനായിട്ട് നമ്മൾ മരിച്ച് സ്വർഗത്തിൽ പോകുന്ന അല്ല എന്നുള്ളതാണ് ഞാൻ കണ്ടത്. Okay, sir.
No, John, thank you very much. Hold on to that. That's a very different kind of thing. That's why I said you have to read about salvation. It's not just something you have an entire literature of theologians and scholars who work across the world on this kind of thing. This is just one aspect of that. That's why I said you
Yes, sir. Sir, they have a long relationship or history with the Travancore king. I forgot that. I haven't included in that. Sorry, sir. And I didn't thought of saying that they don't have any influence of Hindu. I just thought of saying that there are some inner conflicts and ambiguity going among them from my narratives. And another thing, I didn't perceive the concept of that liminality as a theological concept. So I will be including it in future.
Thank you, sir, for your critical comments. How Dalit Christians are negotiating dual identity? This is the prime question posed by you, sir. See, most of the Dalit Christians are able to acquire SC Hindu status caste certificates comfortably. Or even if they have difficulty in acquiring SC Hindu status, in due course of time they are able to acquire it. Because in South India, largely Dalits are able to acquire SC Hindu status. Moreover, politically, one chief minister in 2014, between 2011 to 14, the chief minister has taken a decision that Dalits should be given caste certificates without harassing them. That chief minister was from Congress government. At that time, Congress was losing its hold to the YSRCP Jagan Mohan Reddy. So in order to retain the political power, chief minister has given direction to the revenue officials to give caste certificates without harassing Dalits based on family caste certificates, which they have the family lineage caste certificates. Based on that, without harassing, give them caste certificates. So the Dalits are as of now able to acquire SC Hindu status comfortably. However, there are Hindutva elements, especially active online cyber media, creating hangama to some extent. The tussle between Hindutva forces and pastors and Christian devotees are taking place on cyberspace. But mainstream Dalit leadership is silent against Hindutva, and also mainstream Hindutva, the Dalit leaders also, in the sense, Dalit martial leaders in BJP also silent against Dalit Christians. The larger Hindutva is racking anxieties in coastal Andhra Pradesh against the Christianity and Dalit Christians on cyberspace. So as of now, there is no direct confrontation. That is so dual identity negotiation is going on in a comfortable mode as of now. Thank you, sir. Satish Deshpande, sir, that I should highlight what are the benefits they are losing in the domain of BC category. I thought it is an implied sense that they are losing substantially, that the gathering knows, and hence I took it for granted. However, in write-up, I will take into consideration your suggestion. Moreover, the BC during the BC reservation at the national level, as you know, came very late, the discourse. However, in South India, this BC discourse has been there as part of the Madras presidency and Andhra state, which was carved out of Madras presidency, and Andhra Pradesh, and present Andhra Pradesh after bifurcation of Telangana. So this BC reservation has been there, and where there is very less percentage of only 1%. So the Dalits are not comfortable to seek that 1% reservation, as they are unable to ameliorate their conditions based on that 1% reservation. And the positions allotted for that 1% reservation is also very marginal. So they don't want to take that BC claim. And in the national level, it is very recent discourse, as you know. So that's the thing. And coming to the various discourses of Dalit Christian literature, I am very, as pointed out by Sanal Mohan sir, I am quite aware of various discourses, some of the prominent discourses which you have highlighted. But as a political science background student, I took into a different perspective, looking at intra-dynamics. Intra-dynamics within the Dalit Christians are not seen as of now in academic sense. That's the reason I took into consideration two congregations and two churches, Mala and Madiga dominated, and I did essential political ethnography. However, I will take into consideration your pointed review of literature from various dynamics. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all. Thank you for listening to the session. We are continuing our sixth section. Thank you. Okay.
That concludes our enriching session on intersection of religion, identity and belonging. Now we will take a 5-minute break.